Across the United States, there are countless stories that rarely make headlines. Stories that don't show up on the evening news or trend on social media. Stories of people who failed spectacularly, who hit rock bottom, who made choices they regretted deeply. Stories of struggle, of loss, of feeling completely lost. But also stories of second chances, of unexpected turning points, of lives being rebuilt from ruins. Not always dramatically, like in the movies with sudden transformation and triumphant music. Sometimes quietly, gradually, through small choices and patient persistence. What does redemption really look like in actual human lives? Where does grace fit into these stories, and what can we learn from people who've walked through failure and somehow found a way forward? Let's explore these questions together. Welcome to the Scholar's Ledger, where history, faith, and power are revealed. Before we dive into specific stories, we need to understand what we're actually talking about when we use words like redemption and grace, because these terms carry a lot of baggage and mean different things to different people. Redemption, in its most basic sense, often means a turning point, a moment when a life that was headed in a destructive direction begins to change course. It's about recovery, restoration, being rescued from a bad situation or from your own worst self. Grace is even harder to pin down. For religious people, it often means unmerited favor from God, forgiveness and love that you didn't earn and can't earn. For others, grace might mean forgiveness from people you've wronged, or kindness shown when judgment would be more expected, or a second chance you didn't think you'd get. The question we're asking today is, are redemption and grace things people find through internal searching and personal effort? Or are they fundamentally things we experience through relationships, through others extending mercy and opportunity? The answer, as we'll see, is probably both. Redemption is rarely something you accomplish alone, even if it requires personal transformation. In almost every redemption story, there's a failure that serves as the catalyst for change. The person loses direction through some combination of poor decisions, difficult circumstances they couldn't control, personal struggles with addiction or mental health, or just the accumulated consequences of small bad choices over time. They hit what recovery communities call rock bottom, a point where continuing on the same path becomes impossible or unbearable. Maybe it's an arrest, a lost relationship, a health crisis, a moment of clarity where they see what they've become and can't live with it anymore. Then something shifts. It might be a sudden realization, waking up in a jail cell or hospital bed and thinking, I can't keep doing this. It might be a conversation with someone who speaks truth they can finally hear. It might be hitting consequences severe enough that denial is no longer possible. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, which acknowledges that falling, failing, making mistakes. These are part of human experience. The question isn't whether you'll fail, but whether you'll get back up. But here's what's really interesting. Some people do get back up and change course, while others keep falling in the same pattern over and over. What makes the difference? Why does hitting bottom become a turning point for some people but not others? The answer seems to be complex, involving personal readiness, the severity of consequences, the availability of support, sometimes sheer chance or timing. But almost always, there's some combination of personal decision, I choose to try something different, and external support or opportunity that makes change actually possible rather than just aspirational. Forgiveness plays a crucial but complicated role in most redemption stories, and it comes from different directions. Sometimes forgiveness comes from others, from family members who've been hurt by your actions, from friends who watched you self-destruct, from communities you've wronged. When someone you've harmed looks at you and says, I forgive you, I still see your humanity, I'm willing to give you another chance. That can be transformative. It can break through shame and self-hatred in ways nothing else can. It can give you a reason to change beyond just escaping consequences. But external forgiveness isn't always available. Sometimes the people you've hurt can't or won't forgive, and they have every right to that position. You broke trust, caused real harm, and forgiveness isn't owed to you just because you're sorry now. So often, part of the redemption journey is learning to live with the fact that some relationships can't be restored, some harm can't be undone. And you have to move forward anyway. That's where internal forgiveness becomes crucial. Learning to accept your past mistakes, to forgive yourself even if others don't, to stop being defined entirely by your worst moments. There's a verse in Luke where Jesus says, forgive and you will be forgiven, which creates this reciprocal relationship between forgiving others and being forgiven yourself. But the psychological reality is that often you need to experience forgiveness, either from others or from yourself, before you can extend it. And the forgiveness journey is rarely clean or linear. It's more like waves. Some days you feel forgiven and forgiving. Other days the shame and anger come flooding back. So here's what we need to ask. Is forgiveness the essential key that unlocks redemption? Or is it just one important element in a larger, more complex process of transformation that includes accountability, amends, changed behavior, and time? Here's something that shows up in almost every genuine redemption story. It rarely happens in isolation. Support systems, community, relationships with people who believe in your potential even when you don't. These make the difference between someone who changes their life and someone who stays stuck, despite wanting something different. Think about the role of mentors, people who've walked similar paths and can guide you through the challenges of change. Someone who's been through addiction recovery helping someone just starting out. Someone who's rebuilt their life after incarceration, showing someone else that it's possible. Think about communities that provide stability and accountability. Recovery groups, faith communities, support networks where you show up regularly and people notice if you're struggling. These create structure and connection that make it harder to slip back into old patterns. Think about organizations that create opportunities for people with difficult pasts, employers willing to hire people with records, programs that provide job training and housing and support services. These turn abstract desire for change into concrete pathways forward. The reality is that personal transformation requires personal choice and effort. Nobody can do your changing for you. But personal effort alone isn't enough if you don't have support. If doors stay closed, if you're constantly reminded of your past failures rather than encouraged towards your future potential. So the question becomes, how important is community in transforming a life? The evidence suggests it's absolutely essential. You can have all the personal motivation in the world, but without support systems and opportunities, redemption remains theoretical rather than actual. For many people, faith and spirituality become central to their redemption story. They'll describe a moment of spiritual awakening, of encountering God or higher power, of religious conversion that fundamentally reoriented their life. Prayer, scripture, religious community, spiritual practices, these provided structure, purpose, meaning, and a sense of being loved and valued despite past failures. There's a verse in 2 Corinthians about being a new creation in Christ. And for people who experience religious conversion as part of recovery, that language of complete transformation, of old things passing away and new things coming, that resonates deeply. But here's what's important to recognize. While faith is transformative for many people, it's not the only path to genuine redemption and change. Others transform their lives through secular recovery programs, through therapy and medication, through developing new relationships and goals, through finding meaning in work or activism or art. Their turning points might come from psychological insight rather than spiritual awakening, from human connection rather than divine encounter, from developing coping skills rather than religious practices. So we need to ask carefully, is faith a unique catalyst for change that works in ways nothing else can? Or is it one among several possible paths to transformation, effective for people who connect with it but not uniquely necessary? Because if we're trying to understand redemption and how it works, we need to look at what's actually common across different paths. And what seems common is, something provides hope when you're hopeless, structure when life feels chaotic, meaning beyond just avoiding pain, connection when you feel isolated, and a vision of who you could become that's different from who you've been. Faith does all of that for many people, but so do other frameworks and communities. Let's be honest about something important. Redemption is not immediate, it's not easy, and it doesn't always succeed even when someone genuinely wants to change. Starting over involves rebuilding trust with people who have legitimate reasons not to trust you anymore. That takes time, consistency, and accepting that some people may never trust you again. It involves facing real consequences for past actions. Legal consequences, financial consequences, relational consequences that don't just disappear because you're trying to do better now. It involves overcoming doubt both from others and from yourself. Society is often skeptical of redemption stories. People assume you'll go back to your old ways, that your transformation isn't real or won't last. And honestly, you doubt yourself too. You have bad days where you're tempted to slip into old patterns. You face situations that triggered past behavior, and you have to actively choose differently. You look at how far you still have to go and feel overwhelmed. Some people succeed in this difficult work. They stay the course, they build new lives, they become genuinely different people who contribute positively to their communities. But others struggle, they have setbacks and relapses. Some restart the change process multiple times before it sticks. Others never quite break free from destructive patterns despite wanting to. So what determines whether a second chance leads to lasting change? It seems to be some combination of personal commitment and sustained effort, adequate support systems and opportunities. addressing underlying issues like trauma or addiction rather than just changing behavior, sometimes timing and circumstances that are partly luck. There's no guaranteed formula, which means redemption always involves risk and uncertainty. Here's something beautiful and often overlooked. Grace often appears in small, unexpected moments rather than dramatic gestures. It's the employer who looks at your application, sees the gap in employment history or the criminal record, and decides to give you a chance anyway. It's the family member who chooses reconciliation over continuing estrangement, who says, "I see you're trying, and that matters to me." It's the stranger who offers help without judgment when you're struggling, who treats you with dignity when they could treat you with contempt. It's the recovery sponsor who answers the phone at 2 a.m. when you're close to relapse. It's the friend who stays even when you're difficult to be around. It's the community that welcomes you back after you've been away. These moments may seem small to the person offering them. Just a job, just a call, just basic human decency. But to the person receiving them, they can be life-changing. They say, "You're worth this. You're not defined only by your worst moments. Your future can be different from your past." There's a verse in 2 Corinthians where Paul writes about God saying, "My grace is sufficient for you," which suggests grace as something that sustains you through difficulty rather than just removing the difficulty. So here's what we need to ask. How often does grace, whether we define it spiritually or simply as unearned kindness and opportunity, shape outcomes in ways we don't fully recognize or appreciate? Because I think most successful redemption stories, when you look closely, are full of these moments of grace. Not dramatic intervention, just small acts of mercy and opportunity that created space for change. So, what do stories of redemption and grace reveal about human nature? They show us that people are capable of profound change, but that change rarely happens through willpower alone. Is transformation driven more by personal effort or by the support and grace others extend? The honest answer is both are essential. You need personal commitment and external support, internal change and external opportunity. Neither is sufficient by itself. And how does grace, whether defined spiritually as divine mercy or socially as human kindness and second chances, influence redemption? It seems to be absolutely central, not because it guarantees change or makes transformation easy, but because it creates the conditions where change becomes possible. Stories of redemption and grace remind us that failure, while painful and consequential, doesn't have to be the end of the story. Change is genuinely possible. Lives can be rebuilt. People can become better versions of themselves. But it usually comes through a combination of personal effort, support from others, opportunities that sometimes feel like grace and time. Across America, these stories continue. Not always making headlines, not always dramatic, but quietly shaping lives one moment of choice and grace at a time. This is the Scholar's Ledger, where history, faith, and power are revealed. If you've experienced redemption or witnessed it in others, share your perspective in the comments. These stories matter.